The positive effects of tracking and ability grouping. Education in a democracy promises that everyone will have an equal opportunity to actualize their potential, to learn as much as they can. This applies to all types of students, both the gifted and those students that might be needing an extra help or an extra push in a particular area. The only way to be able to do this, to be able to have every student reach their potential and give as much as they can give, is by dividing our students into classrooms based on the students' particular abilities, particularly in math and languages. It must be clear that ability grouping is not tracking. When students are tracked in a school, they are put into different groups based on their performance, on tests, and particularly IQ tests, and other measured intelligence formats. This type of division of students results in one group, the high ability group, being assigned to a teacher, and the other group, the regular group for lack of a better word, being assigned to another teacher. Usually, this teacher stays with the top group forever, and the other teacher stays with the regular group for the duration of their educational career. That causes problems. Usually, once a student is placed on this track, they are stuck there for the duration of their school years. Grouping by ability is not tracking. It is a division of students into groups based on a particular ability. It is a type of differentiated instruction, teaching so that each student can maximize their potential without limiting their success. People tend to fear what they don't know and what they don't understand. So the question here is, what is ability grouping? The commonly accepted meaning of ability grouping relates to regrouping students for the purpose of providing curriculum aimed at a common instructional level. It means placing students with other students whose learning needs are similar to theirs, for whatever length of time works best. You must understand that when students are placed with students that are on the same spectrum as they are, they feed each other and they tend to succeed and reach a higher level. Ability grouping varies by levels, elementary school versus high school. It is more common in high school, particularly in the areas of math and English, and it becomes more visible as you reach junior and senior year and students start taking AP courses or IB courses. In the elementary school, grouping tends to occur within the classroom. Students are divided into smaller groups, into different clusters, and each of them are given particular instructions and different levels of work. An example is guided reading or reading A through Z, where students might be in a cluster reading at a first grade level, others might be reading at a kinder or at a second grade level, but everybody is maximizing their potential. When students are grouped by abilities, they are not stuck in that group for the rest of their educational years. Usually at the end of the year, students are evaluated and the groups are shifted around as needed, as are the teachers. Hence, not creating this fictitious belief that that's the teacher for the low group or that's the teacher for the high group. Everybody gets to experience different teachers and work at their level of not necessarily comfort, but at their level that promotes success for that student in particular, which is our final goal. Grouping practices vary by school and by states. The usual grouping practice is whole group instruction, in which everybody is in one classroom with one teacher getting the same instruction. The two main grouping practices used when grouping by ability are in-between class or Joplin plan grouping. This is a temporary grouping arrangement. The curriculum is developed in accordance to each group and the student's needs. It reduces heterogeneity in the classroom without affecting the self-esteem of those students that are not in the high-level track. The other main grouping practice that is used when grouping by ability is called within-class grouping. Here, students are divided into small groups within the same classroom based on their performance and levels of prior knowledge. This is why differentiated instruction is key when you are grouping by ability. You need to be able to deal with all type of learners, and have them reach their potential. This is the only way to do it. When you are in a whole group class instruction, inevitably someone is always left behind, be it the slow learner, the regular learner, or the high achieving learner. Someone is just not always there. It's impossible, unreachable if you have one teacher and 25 students that are all at a different spectrum. There is no differentiated instruction going on in that type of classroom. Ability grouping fosters success at all levels and for all students. And it is beneficial and more productive for the teachers in the classroom. Teachers can adapt their instruction to the particular level that they are teaching. Hence, the students are getting more individualized attention and are getting more directional instruction. For the high achievers, it means that they can receive more challenging material that will exalt their learning. It also means for these high achievers that they will have the challenge of having the stimulus of other students that are high achievers as well, and it is very beneficial for their learning. It also helps them realize that the fact that they are high achievers and that they might be gifted, again, for lack of a better word, doesn't make them better than anybody else. It lets them know that there are other people like them out there. Students that need more academic support can also receive it when ability grouping is going on. And when students are divided into homogeneous classrooms, more learning takes place, and students tend to be more successful. Having students in heterogeneous groups can have a negative effect on both groups of students alike. Let's listen to what a student had to say. When Bill, the gifted one, was in class, it was like the sun shining on a bright, clear day. But when he went out to work with the other gifted kids, it was like when the sun goes over the horizon, the rest of us were like the moon and the stars. That's when we finally got a chance to shine. If you have 25 children in one classroom and 5 of these children are gifted students, they will inevitably monopolize instruction in your classroom, or they will become problematic students and interrupt teaching in your classroom. If the curriculum being taught to both high achievers and the regular group is similar but differentiated across the board, grouping the high achieving students is not detrimental to the academic, emotional, or social growth of students that are not included in such a class. On the contrary, it permits the other students to shine and have their moment and become successful learners. Studies that prove that grouping high ability students in one classroom is successful abound. According to Kulik, 9 out of his 11 studies demonstrated a higher level of overall achievement when flexible grouping arrangements had taken place. 82% of these groups demonstrated a higher level of achievement, while 18% saw no significant change. Why are we not grouping all of our students by ability? It will only promote higher learning at all levels. The time has come to provide the opportunity of success for all of our students. Let's start by grouping by ability.
Tracking and ability grouping is one of the most controversial practices in education. There has been an extensive amount of research on tracking and ability grouping, yielding varying results. Some critics of the practice believe that tracking does not benefit any students and only places lower level students in a position where they are at a greater risk of failure. Tracking and ability grouping has also been considered as another manner in which students are labeled. Once students are labeled, they typically stay in these groups for the remainder of their educational career. Grouping of students further highlights the differences among them and leads to further stratification of society. Consider these 5 points. Students in lower track classes tend to stay in lower track classes. Students in lower track courses are often given a less rigorous curriculum. Students in lower track courses are taught by less trained teachers. Tracking and ability grouping leads to social stratification, and there is little evidence to support the use of tracking and ability grouping. One argument presented in opposition to tracking and ability grouping is that once students are placed in lower level tracks, it is increasingly difficult for them to work their way out of this classification and gain interest into higher level courses. Because of the limited access to information, students in lower level courses do not perform as well as other students and have minimal academic gains. Chances of receiving better track assignments are difficult, and students can begin to take their education less seriously. This chart indicates how often students are changed from a higher ability course after completing the 10th grade. The number of students who move from lower tracks to higher tracks is alarming. Many of the students in the lower tracks lack the motivation and academic independence to perform in higher tracks. An additional issue with ability grouping is that students in lower track courses are often given a less rigorous curriculum. Low tracks often emphasize good behavior and menial skills, while high tracks offer preparation for college. In classrooms that practice ability grouping, lower group students are likely to be assigned lesson plans that emphasize rote memorization and routinized kinds of thinking, while higher group students are assigned more challenging lessons. Lower level students being taught by less trained teachers is another issue created by tracking. Unequal assignment of teachers creates an ongoing discrepancy in access to educational resources and curriculum offerings required for lower level students. These students tend to receive lower quality instruction and have considerably less access to materials and resources, and have less engaging learning and less rigorous coursework in their classrooms. These differences indicate the array of educational inequalities found in lower level classrooms. Over time, ability grouping leads to social stratification. Sussex researchers has found that children have been placed in ability groups according to their social class, irrespective to their prior attainment. According to Tom Lovelace, students from poor families are more likely to be assigned to low tracks than wealthier students with identical achievement scores. Despite this intended benefit, tracking has been widely criticized as inegalitarian because students in high tracks tend to widen their achievement advantages over their low track peers. Finally, one of the most striking arguments against ability grouping is that little evidence supports the claim that tracking or grouping by ability produces higher overall achievement than heterogeneous grouping. According to Gammaren, low group losses can offset high group gains, making the effects on productivity zero, yet having a substantial impact on inequality. Research studies have found that the more rigid a tracking system is, there are no benefits to overall school achievement and serious detriments to equity. This graph indicates that achievement gains are roughly equal for students in tracked and untracked schools, but the distribution of gains differs in important ways in tracked and untracked schools. High achievers learn more in a tracked system than an untracked system. Middle achievers learn about the same in tracked and untracked classes, and low achievers learn more in an untracked system than in a tracked system.